Hi, this is Bill Varney from Fish the Surf and Your Saltwater Guide with your surf fishing report for Thursday, June 5th. So we have some incredible surf fishing going on right now and a really robust report. So let's get right into it. The first thing I want to cover before we talk about a report here is preparing for the beach. You know, over the years, but certainly just over this springtime, I've really seen a big difference between the anglers who prepare in advance, especially with their bait for the beach, and those who don't. So I'm talking about anglers who are going to use the Carolina rig, use live bait at the beach. If you're going to go down to the beach and just hook on a gulp bait or a grub and cast it out and be disappointed because maybe you're catching small fish or no fish at all, you're the one who needs to listen to this. Those who are successful at surf fishing collect bait and live bait, whether it's at a tackle shop or down at the beach, before they go to the sand. In other words, if you're going to fish sand crabs, go to the beach a couple days before you're going to fish for corbina and other surf fish and collect a couple dozen soft shell sand crabs. So as soon as you get down to the beach that day that you're going to go fishing, you can hook one right on your hook, cast it out, and you're ready to go. You don't want to have to waste any of your time looking for bait. And that's the same with something like mussels or clams, if you were to dig those up, or even going to the tackle shop to get lugworms and bloodworms. Those live for 1 or 2 weeks in your refrigerator. They're very hardy, so you can easily get them in advance, and that's really important because as soon as you get down to the sand in the morning, you want to be able to put your bait on and cast out and immediately start fishing, not looking for bait. That is what really makes successful anglers on the sand. So let's start up in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara continues to struggle with this dirty water, and not dirty from the red tide particularly, but much dirtier, quote unquote, from the kelp and the eelgrass that's in the water. Anglers who have been successful up there have looked for clear areas and fished where a clear area is adjacent to a dirty area right on those edges. That is a lot of times where the fish feed. So that's one thing about Santa Barbara. Hopefully that will clear up in the next few weeks. We'll see as we get more of these southern swells to push that warm water north and maybe push some of that eelgrass and kelp out of the way. Santa Barbara perch fishing slowed down with smaller perch now coming in. Many of those females, pregnant females, are now off of the spawn and they're out somewhere hiding. So that has slowed down along all of Santa Barbara from Carpinteria all the way through up to Halama. But the good news in that area is halibut fishing has picked up, and white sea bass for legal white sea bass fishing has picked up in the last week. Some of the best baits that have been used have been white flukes and strips of squid, both of these fished on the drop shot rig. Those have worked really well, and some of the best spots have been Henry's, Graveyards, Refugio State Beach, and down around the Goleta area, so that Moore Mesa, almost all the way to Campus Point. Of course, part of that Campus Point is closed, of course, but from the Goleta Pier down south there to Moore Mesa has been really good for halibut and some good sea bass fishing. All of those fish, we talked about this before, are coming in close in that area because there's quite a bit of bait offshore, and you've got grunion, anchovy, and a little bit of sardine up there. So that's really good news for Santa Barbara. As we make our way down to La Conchita continues to be pretty good. Not as good as it was a couple of weeks ago, but there's still quite a few perch there, and there's some of those perch in the 14-inch range still there. There's a lot of walleye perch in that area, and some yellowfin croaker have been picked up there in the last week or so. As we make our way down to Ventura, Ventura's been the absolute epicenter of what's going on in Ventura County. Anywhere along the jetties in Ventura Beach, all the way down past the harbors there, all the way down to Hollywood Beach has been good. It's been excellent fishing for barred surf perch, walleye surf perch, some big spot fin croaker also, and yellowfin croaker all along that stretch. And really the best baits that have been used by anglers have been lugworms and bloodworms, and most of those successful anglers have either been fishing from the jetties in Ventura or adjacent to the jetties in Ventura, really all the way from C Street all the way down the beach with all of the jetties, and of course the harbor jetties too. When you're fishing those areas that where sand meets rock, a lot of times you'll find fish in those areas because that's where the sand crabs, the mussels, sometimes clams and so forth, worms, they congregate on the edge of the sand rock areas. So Ventura remains good. As we make our way down to Malibu, still not a lot of word from Malibu. We know that Topanga Canyon all the way up to the Malibu Pier is still pretty much closed in that area. But the good news from that area this week that came in is that the water has really cleaned up down there. It's become much clearer than after that runoff came off in the fire. And once again, there's, we talked about this last week, a lot less charcoal washing up on the beach. I know that between about Leo Carrillo and then all the way up to Point Mugu, there's been some spots of red tide in there. Some has been near shore, some has been offshore. All of that should clean up really in the next 10 days or so, as we expect 3 successive south swells in a row, 2 from the South Pacific, 1 from Veracruz, Mexico, to push along the California coast and push that warm, clear water north. So that should hopefully warm the water up and clear that right out. And then as we make our way down to the South Bay, Marina del Rey, Venice, they continue to be good for those medium-sized perch and yellowfin croaker in that area. That bite stays good. And that area, really from, you know, the Venice area all the way down to El Segundo, is traditionally good also for spotfin croaker. Look for those to pick up in the next couple of weeks too. When we make our way to El Segundo, one angler caught a nice big 22-inch corbina on a Lucky Craft there. But when we make our way down to Hermosa Beach, as we talked about before, the epicenter of corbina fishing in the South Bay, one angler caught 4 corbina in one day, came back the next morning and got 2 more the next morning, right in the middle of Hermosa Beach. As I've talked about, kind of that 6th to 12th Street zone, but really all along that zone from the pier all the way to the Redondo Breakwater, King Harbor Breakwater, you're going to find corbina all along that stretch, along with a lot of sand crabs. To be successful at that, remember, and that angler did that too, go down in advance, catch 1 or 2 dozen softshell sand crabs, and be ready the moment you hit the beach to put a soft shell on, cast it out, and catch a corbina. So that's been really good in the South Bay. And then as we make our way down to Redondo, there was a 3-pound yellowfin croaker caught on a white fluke, a big yellowfin croaker. And there's been spotfin croaker also caught down in that Redondo area just in the last week. Anglers down there are using both mussel and bloodworms down there. Seem to be working really, really well in that Redondo Rat Beach zone. So really that all of the South Bay has really turned on. The surf is small there. The water's calm and clear. It's been good fishing down in that area. And then when we make our way down to Orange County, I always kind of include that Long Beach area in Orange County. 72nd Street this week kicked out a beautiful halibut, 28-inch halibut from there on the Lucky Craft. That's a really good sign. And then really from that zone of Huntington Harbor all the way to the Newport jetties has had some great surf fishing. Just this last weekend, one angler caught a 5-pound spotfin croaker along Bolsa Chica. There's been several caught along there, and those were all caught on softshell sand crabs. When we make our way down to the Newport jetties, although didn't hear of any big fish this week from the jetties, there were lots of perch at the jetties. And there's no question, and some yellowfin croaker there too, and there's no question those fish are there because there are a tremendous amount of sand crabs, both hard and soft shells, all along the Newport coast there, and in particular around the jetty areas. In the corner of each one of those jetties, on each side of the jetty as you go down the beach where the sand meets the water there, the sand accumulates there and is very soft. And so tons of sand crabs spawn in there, and that produces all of this sand crab that washes in and out of those corners. That means that there'll be a lot of corbina there this summer, and I would think in the next 2 to 3 weeks that's when you're going to start catching corbina along the Newport jetty area. So Orange County really remains good. And then I think one of the biggest and most exciting things about Orange County was the fact that on the San Clemente Pier, and it's not the farthest north I've ever heard, but on the San Clemente Pier this week, a 15-inch bonefish was caught. So the farthest north I've ever seen them is Rat Beach in Redondo. Somebody caught one a couple of years ago. We've heard of them in San Diego Bay. I personally caught them there. I personally caught them in Mission Bay. But now they're out in the open water, and when you're catching them on the San Clemente Pier, that means they're obviously making their way north. A really fun game fish to catch for sure. One thing I wanted to add to, just got a note just a few minutes ago in the South Bay that one of our favorite fly fishermen, William, using a red fly, caught a big 23-inch corbina, landed on the shore using the fly rod. And really, that takes a lot of skill for you fly anglers out there who fly fish in the surf, how it takes a special, lack of wind, special areas to fish, a lot of casts. That's really a great accomplishment. Good job, William. And then as we make our way down to San Diego, one angler down to San Diego, what a day he had. He caught a spot fin croaker of about 4 pounds, and then a few minutes later, using the gulp on the Carolina rig, caught a 30-inch striper, both in North San Diego County. So some really good fishing continues down there. Didn't hear a lot about the stripers this week. Heard more of them down in the San Clemente to Mexican border zone than we did up north. And maybe they're just a giant school swimming around. Don't really know, but we'll keep our eyes on the stripers. They really should be following in all these grunion that are coming into shore. When we go to Black's Beach this week, we got another good report from Black's Beach this week with good perch fishing, good yellowfin croaker fishing there, with a couple of spot fin caught there, all on bloodworms and leadworms down there, and soft shell sand crabs. Those have all worked well, and this is the second week in a row that we have had a good report from Black's Beach. So I know the fishing's good there. I actually had a good report about a month ago, so it's probably been good this whole time and continues to get better as we go on. And then last but not least, I wanted to talk about fishing at the Silver Strand. Now, the water is overly disgusting down there. The Tijuana Slough is kicking out all of this sludge and sewage, and then because the swell is coming up from the south, it pushes it up toward Coronado. On days where that has cleared out, there's been good fishing there. One angler caught a 22-inch corbina there this week on a clear day on a sand crab. I would really suggest that it's fun fishing there, it's good fishing there, but I really wouldn't eat any fish out of that area. And what's really sad is that is one of the remaining areas in Southern California, in far Southern California, where there's still a lot of pismo clams, but because they're a filter organism, I certainly wouldn't dig for them or eat them in that area. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is I want to make sure that everybody's signed up for my newsletter. Every month I send out a newsletter. There's one coming out at the end of this week, so please sign up today. It's got a synopsis of fishing over the month, what have people been catching, gives you updates on conditions, what to look forward to, gives you tips and all kinds of information and pictures in there. It's great. I don't spam you, and it's all about surf fishing. So go to fishthesurf.com and sign up for the newsletter there. Our next grunion run is going to be June 11th. The 10th is full moon. June 11th through the 14th. Anytime after about 10 o'clock at night, you'll see those grunion coming up on the beach. Remember, this is a no-take period. Not only can you not take any, believe it or not, you can't even touch them, which is crazy. But the good news is that in July, just coming up next month, is when we can begin to collect them again. And that would be a good time because really their runs are gonna peter out near the end of July, although they go into August, usually pretty slow in August as far as those runs. So when July comes and you have your first grunion run, that is an excellent time to collect them. And then last but not least, if you need tackle for the beach, check out surffishtackle.com, where not only will you find all the terminal tackle that I use at the beach, and Lucky Crafts and Battle Stars and different lures like that, but you'll find a rod and reel sale going on right now with Okuma equipment, just some of the best equipment to use on the beach. Check it out at surffishtackle.com. So that's this week's Surf Fishing Report. Thank you so much for watching, and until next week when I see you right here, good luck on the beach.